Many amateurs stagger their stance to manipulate the angle or to add power to their shots. In reality, this is probably causing more problems than it's solving. Here are my 3 myths about the stagger. Let's get started.
Drop.
I've seen a lot of amateurs that believe that they need to, with this last step, intentionally create stagger by stepping diagonal on this final step instead of towards their target. That's a myth. The reality is that when you come through your X step here, this back foot is going to reorient you a little bit towards like 11 o'clock if where you're throwing is 12 o'clock. And then when you combine that with the shoulder turn is going to start turning your core, start turning this hip, and start pulling this hip around a little bit. So you will create this natural 20, 30-ish degree stagger that we see with pros. If you try to force a stagger, you're probably gonna run into a couple problems. The 3 main ones that I see are, first, that you're gonna mess up your reach back timing. So if you start striding diagonally here, your hips being turned back are going to give you less room to turn your shoulders back. So you're actually going to shorten or lessen your reach back unintentionally. So if I stride this way, my shoulders can actually go all the way past my hips like that, versus if I'm here and I stride this way, my hips are already here, my shoulders are already here, so I only get, 20 degrees of shoulder rotation, which is not that much coil. Now, if you don't do that one and instead you decide to coil all the way and get full shoulder separation, now you're gonna bring in rounding because your hips are so far back already that you're gonna pull the disc behind you. Third problem that is a little less common, but it happens sometimes, is a little bit annoying, so I'm gonna address it, is that when you go here and your foot could be totally this way, if you ever see your foot twist during the final stride, it's probably because you're also intentionally staggering. So I can get my foot oriented correctly, my left foot oriented correctly during my X step here, but if I'm trying to stride this way and I let my hips turn back as part of this stride, this foot also wants to squeak a little too far back. That will create some brace problems and also could create one of the 2 problems that we just talked about. So, key action item from this is just walk and stride forward on this final step. Let your X step redirect your body a little bit more towards 11 o'clock for you righties, a little bit more towards 1 for you lefties. And then from here, let your shoulder turn do the rest. Should get you in about this stance that we see pros in. Some people believe that you need to change your stagger depending on the shot shape that you're throwing. So if you're throwing a hyzer, maybe you would have more stagger or less stagger. If you're throwing an anhyzer, maybe you'd have more or less. The reality is that the primary dictator of the angle that you're going to throw is going to be your body posture. So how kind of over the shot you are, where this might be more hyzer. This, for most people, is gonna be roughly flat, and then almost standing up would be most people's anhyzer. That is primarily how angle is controlled out of the hand. Secondarily, people's release angle is going to be, if they're more briefcase, they're going to be more towards an anhyzer. If they're more underneath the disc like this on their backswing, and as they come through the pocket, they're going to be more towards hyzer. So those are the primary things that dictate release angle. So the truth is that most pros are going to maintain roughly the same amount of stagger regardless of the angle that they're throwing. But this can be a little confusing, so let me give you a quick demonstration. At first glance, this might look like, oh, absolutely, dude, what are you talking about? You're definitely changing the amount of stagger that you have for these shots. Well, most time when you're seeing shots on coverage or on camera, It's exactly in this setup where you've got a fixed camera behind and we're throwing to the same basket. So if you see people take different lines, you're going to perceive a different amount of stagger because you're not following their actual line. So if I'm throwing all 3 of these shots to my bag, I'm going to change my walk-up angle. It's the same walk-up that I normally have. I'm just going to aim that walk-up a different direction for the very simple fact of if I walked up this way, straight and threw an anhyzer, it's going to end up over there. Now I'm gonna move you directly behind my line, my aim point in the air, not directly behind the tee pad, and I want you to evaluate the stagger that happens there. There we go. Caveat here, if you have extreme postural changes for like a super spike hyzer or a roller or something like that, this might change a little bit. But the key takeaways for this part, adjust your shot angle with your posture and work on your walk up. It should be very consistent. You should have one walk up that you try to iron down and make the same every single time. Hey, before we get into the third myth, I wanted to virtually welcome you to our store. If you need gear, and if this content has helped you out in any way, I might kindly ask that you consider buying from us. We've got all this MVP hitting the site, and of course, cat stamps. Without further ado, third myth, let's go. Stagger adds power. This is half true, actually, but probably not for the reason that you think. So some of you may have tried to add more stagger in order to gain power, and you might have even got a little more distance. Now, the reason why you probably got that distance is because when we over stagger like this, we are forcibly locking our hips out of the shot. The upside to this is it makes them way easier to stop, right? When we brace, we want our hips to stop drifting forward. We want them to stop spinning around. And we just want them to stay. Well, if you're set up like this, it's very tough for these hips to open up. So consequently, you might be bracing better, AKA leaking less power from your throw. So you very well could be throwing farther. Now, the problems with this, in addition to the reach back timing issue and the rounding issue, is that if you force your hips out of the shot and you are band-aiding, can I make that a verb?
I like it.
Okay.
I can roll with it.
Okay. And you're band-aiding your lack of brace by forcing your hips to stay back, but your body still wants to spin forward. Now, this is not medical advice, but experientially, if you do that, the lower back doesn't tend to like force rotation from a blocked position like that. You might be throwing further, but I've had friends, I have seen people who use that. They throw farther, but they complain. They can't even play a whole round because their lower back is just thrown out, basically. Now, again, this is not medical advice. This is just my experience. So the key action item here is that if you are trying to stagger and you're getting extra distance, get rid of the stagger, the extra stagger, work on a normal walk up, and then work on your brace. You're gonna be way better off at the end of the day doing that. Now, the key thing with stagger is it is a natural occurring phenomenon if your walk up is correct, if you have good coil, and the angle of your stagger is not something to obsess over. I haven't measured the amount of stagger that I have. I just know that if I do the same walk up every time, and if I get through my X step cleanly, and if I coil well, I'm going to have enough stagger. The only times you really have to worry about it is if your feet are literally in line here, or they're way over staggered, right? But if they're anywhere close to that 20-ish, 30-ish degrees that I would call pointing towards 11 o'clock, if this yellow line is where I'm throwing, we're gonna be good. Okay, the chances are you're gonna have enough resistance there, enough of a base there to brace, but not so much so that you're having to twist your lower back into the shot and tweak that sucker. As always, guys, thanks for tuning in. All the best with your practicing, and we'll catch you in the next one. Peace.